Hey everybody, Clark Isaac here, again in Russia, unscripted, unabridged, representing the EOC, ABN, Ecumenical Order of Christ, Armageddon Broadcast Network, Sanctuary Interfaith, Russian Sanctuary, and let's not forget the returned Christ himself, Lord Royale. Love you all, and especially you followers out there. Those of you in silent support. Just to give you a little bit of a reminder why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing, and why you should support this cause. Just give you a little history lesson. Going back to what the Lord said to the rabbis, a direct address to the rabbis. He said, I did not create Christianity, you did. He was speaking to the rabbis. Now, of course, the rabbis of today did not create Christianity. However, their forebears, their ancestors did. That brings to question the validity of the Christian faith itself, an ideology, a structure that some, including myself, would say that it's a structure meant to control people, to control societies, to control minds, and to control hearts, to deceive even the very elect with a false doctrine meant to steer them away from the teachings of Christ. Yes, away from the teachings of Christ, contrary to the term Christian. It is not what it seems. Now, so many of us have been deceived in the past by this religion, and by those that are pretty much pathological liars. I would say that by definition. You want to look up the word pathological as it's referenced to pathological liar, psychological definition. You know, it's someone who believes their own lies, and that's easy to say applies to just about every Christian minister out there who thinks that they're being honest. They're really not. They're teaching you lies, and they are pathological liars. Unfortunately, you know, I don't have any scriptures to quote for you today. I'm out here outside on my way home. I just felt inspired to say something to you about this. But you can look up your history. Look up Council of Nicaea, Nicea, Council of Trent, Trent. These two councils determined what is Christianity today. And these councils were run by bishops of differing faiths, but all Roman-approved faiths. Now think about that. Before this time, between roughly about 300 AD up and back to the time when Christ was crucified, there were many different schools of thought on what it was to follow Christ's teachings. And most of these schools of thought were based on the Gospels, but also on what we might consider today as Gnostic texts. A lot of these texts can be found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and a lot of them can be found in the Nag Hammadi library, which is volumes of scrolls that were found in Egypt in an urn in roughly, I believe, the 1970s, which brought to question what is the history of Christianity and what is the validity of what we perceive as Christianity today. There are a lot of pure teachings in there, including one of my favorites, the Gospel of Thomas. If you have time to look it up, please do. The Gospel of Thomas is full of wisdom, and there are no contradictions in there. Speaking of contradictions, let's examine the New Testament of the Bible. There's only a few contradictions in between the Gospels, just a few, and it's just a matter of perspective, really. But when you look at the major contradictions, and these are the argumentative contradictions in the Bible where people say this is why Christianity isn't true, well, they're all from the writings of Paul, also known as Saul of Tarsus. If you know your history, you'd know that Saul of Tarsus was actually an agent implanted by the Sanhedrin to infiltrate earlier Christianity, or what people would call early Christianity. He implanted himself as an apostle, but the apostles never recognized him as such. He only called himself an apostle, self-proclaimed, never recognized by his alleged peers. This begs the point that he was never an apostle, and all his writings are inherently deceptive. So consider that when you believe that your Bible is completely unadulterated, completely pure. It's not. It really isn't. And when the Lord said that I did not create Christianity, you did, he's saying Christ did not make the religion Christianity. And the rabbis, in coercion with the Romans, the hierarchical structure of Israel and Rome itself, they're the ones who created Christianity, and they did it to control you. And look at what they're doing now. They're controlling your minds and your hearts, and you can't even support his clergy and himself when he returns. So just bring that to point. Think about that. Think about where you go every Sunday. Think about who you listen to about spiritual matters. And think about where your money goes and your tithes and your donations. I'm going to leave links below. Let you guys decide where you want to give. Give you some good options. Be mindful of this. So may it be in the name of Lord Rael. Amen.